welcome back to another installment of We Did a Podcast.
We did it.
We did it. I got Franklin here with me. David, as always. Today we're kind of doing a new thing. We're going to be looking at some current events and comparing them to history, specifically. But really more just a discussion. Just the same old thing we're just doing all the time.
Yeah, just talking about stuff.
We're just talking about stuff.
Just talking about things we don't know like everything about. That's the theme of our channel.
That's the theme of our channel.
Just like slightly informed opinions.
Slightly informed, yeah. That might even be that might even be generous. Speaking of talking about stuff, Frank, why don't you give us a good old I was gonna say tender. Why don't you give us a good old eHarmony update for the listeners? It's been like 3 podcasts, I think. No, it's been 2.
I feel like you just did that on purpose because you know exactly what's happening, but I just keep neglecting it.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's not true. You've been there while Michelle's berated me for my absence on eHarmony. I just forget about it. I'm just like living my life and then just like enjoying being by myself. And I keep forgetting that there's this app on my phone trying to find me love.
Well, you can lead a horse to water. No, I'm just joking.
For reals, though.
Well, I mean, I think if you're into it, then you'll be into it.
I mean, we'll see. I just need to try to jump back into it, put some effort into it, see if I can get a date or 2 out of this thing before it runs out.
It would be nice just to get something out of your money, just thinking of it from like an expense standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. If I had an accountant, he'd be furious with me.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, but what are you going to do? That's why I don't have one.
That's why I don't have an accountant, so they won't be mad at your bad spending skills.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't really plan this out very well. Who wants to go first? Mine's a little heavier than yours, I'm expecting, but it has a nice little lighthearted ending to it.
Okay, as long as your end comes out lighthearted, let me let's not get so heavy at first.
I'll do my best.
I'll keep it light, and then you can get real heavy and then bring us back out again.
Oh, I see. That makes sense.
Peeps and Predicts.
That makes way more sense.
All right, cool. So, I'm going to be talking about the Space Force.
Space Force. If
If you hadn't heard about the Space Force yet, Donald Trump made this announcement earlier. I believe it was Monday of this week. It is currently, what is today, the 19th? The 20th?
Wednesday, yeah.
It is Wednesday, the 20th of June.
Star
date 2018.
Wow.
This is the day we are recording this. Well, on Monday, Donald Trump announced his plans to create a 6th branch of the U.S. military. This branch would be in charge of our space defense. The Air Force currently oversees America's military space programs, so they're obviously not too happy about this idea.
Some Space Force guys are going to show up. This is our assignment now.
Yeah, this is our force now. Get out of here. Get back to the air. But yeah, this basically comes as a response to China and Russia's investments in their space programs and stuff like that. China has plans to solidify itself as a superpower in space. They are planning on building an orbiting space station that will constantly be orbiting the Earth, as well as a permanent outpost on the moon.
Okay.
Russia, obviously, we've worked with the Russians in our space endeavors for a long time, where there are currently U.S. and Russian space scientists
yeah,
out on the International Space System, and they rely on launches from the Russians to keep them supplied. So we work together, but they are planning on kind of breaking away from working with the U.S. space programs and teaming up with China because they're thinking that's the pony that's going to win. One of the things, well, I guess while I'm talking about Russia, we can talk about they've already kind of responded to Trump's announcement.
Oh, really? The Russians?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
What do you know? They're listening to what Trump's saying and doing. Just keeping an eye on him.
Weird. I don't know.
Who knows why? But they kind of find his, and it's more like Trump came out and said that he wants to ensure the U.S.'s dominance in space, and that's kind of what has the Russians feeling a little bit nervous. Let's see, who was it? It was a Russian. It was Maria Zakharova. Mm-hmm. Zakharova. That sounds more Russian. Zakharova. She's a Russian foreign. She's from the Russian Foreign Ministry, and she was warning that the U.S. is nurturing plans to bring out weapons into space with the aim of possibly staging military action there. And the Russians do have a branch of their military called the Space Forces right now, but they're like a purely defensive force, and they've always like maintained that stance there.
Okay.
And they stress that all space endeavors must be used, or all that space should be used for peaceful endeavors. But yeah, Donald Trump came out. They're already having a summit. They were signing an action plan we're putting a robotic search mission on the moon in I think about a year or two. And within the next 10 years, they want to put a man on the moon again. A U.S. man, obviously.
A man on the moon.
But yeah, it just seems like Space Race 2.0.
Interesting. With the Russians again.
Yeah, with the Russians again.
History.
So yeah, there's obviously some issues with this. This isn't the first time somebody's proposed something like this. Last June, the House Armed Services Committee tried to form the Space Corps. But there were a bunch of key officials at the DoD that were against the idea, one of whom was Joint Chief Chairman General Joseph Dunford, who Trump addressed directly on Monday when he was making this announcement. And he said, General Dunford, if you would carry out that assignment, I would be very greatly honored. So this guy's already shot it down one time. He was staunchly against the proposal last June in 2017. And that proposal was basically scrapped, and they ordered a study into establishing that separate military branch, just kind of seeing like the viability of it. But a lot of people think that was just like a stall tactic to just kill this thing. They call it death by study in Washington, where it's just a study in another study and another study and another study until they like lose
like
fund and interest. Yeah, exactly.
It's like when you get a speeding ticket, you pay that lawyer to just keep pushing the date back over and over
just
again.
Keep pushing it until they quit.
There you go.
It's exactly the same deal. So yeah, that's the basis of it. It's like Donald Trump might be doing it. If this goes through, it will probably just be defense.
Yeah.
But Donald Trump being Donald Trump is using
dominance makes a word.
Yeah, exactly. When we were using words like dominance, other countries, I mean, it's not even that they're misconstruing it. It just they're taking it for what it sounds like.
Well, from this far, there's just two things that stand out to me. First, it's this Trump and his use of aggressive words. And it's interesting because it works well when it comes to dealing with like Russia, China. For instance, this thing with North Korea, who would have ever guessed that Trump could have actually pulled off a meeting? Now, you can argue that Trump did us a disservice by giving up, a major bargaining chip. But then you can argue the opposite direction. I think there's room for debate there maybe, but what I think is interesting is that Trump trash talked this guy, essentially. Called him Rocket Man, like made fun of him, and then gets the meeting with him. It just seems so... I
love that little video clip from the meeting where Donald Trump makes the joke about making them look thin and handsome.
Yeah.
And they just pan over to to give him, and he's just got that bewildered face.
Huh?
Yeah.
What?
Somebody was saying that it looked like a moment out of Arrested Development, and when you look at it in that light, it's so
I don't know if
you've
seen it, but there's a cutting of that little shot, and then it cuts to the Office music.
Nice.
It's great.
Nice.
Because it looks like an Office, like, zoom in.
That's what it was. It wasn't Arrested
shot.
Development. It was The Office.
It's great. It's weird stuff, though, man, but it's working for him. Like, in some circumstances. France is, like, upset. Canada, upset. People who act civilized, super upset.
Yeah.
It just shows that people react differently in different approaches. You know what I mean? I don't know. Anyways.
I mean, the only way bullies get along with other bullies.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's just that they're similar kinds of people, so things are going to work out there. But interesting. I don't know. I have a question for you, but I'll wait till you get a little more through this thing.
Oh yeah, definitely. I just kind of wanted to like discuss it a little bit and get your thoughts. But I want to hit my comparison first.
Oh, interesting. Okay, what's your comparison?
And I'm drawing comparison to a similar event that happened. And by all means, this isn't the first time that a president has suggested something like this. But it's just like, it's got that Donald Trump spin to it that he puts on everything.
Yeah.
He's got his boisterous attitude that goes into everything that he does, and it just makes everything a little bit crazy. But back in March 23rd, 1983, the 40th president of the United States of America, Ronald Wilson Reagan, calls for the launching of the Star Wars initiative. And he didn't call it the Star Wars Initiative. That's one important comparison I wanted to make. He called it, and this is a very sane thing to call something like this, the Strategic Defense Initiative, or SDI. And the press gave it the name Star Wars because Star Wars had come out 6 years earlier, and the third movie in the trilogy was about to come out 2 months after he had made this announcement. So it was very fresh in the pulp culture. So what are you going to do? You're going to call it Star Wars.
Yeah.
But yeah, Reagan's goal was strictly defense, and he always came out and said that. Reagan was staunchly opposed to MAD, or mutually assured destruction, which was how we kept each other from blowing each other up in the Cold War. It's like, hey, if somebody pulls the trigger, we're all pulling the trigger, and we're all going to die. So everybody kept their fingers off the triggers. Reagan saw this as a dual suicide pact, and that's like the wording he would use to the press. He did not like that strategy at all.
And when you think about it, that really is what that strategy boils down to.
It really is.
It's pretty much like, well, do you want to die too?
Yeah.
It's scary.
Let me know when we're pulling the trigger, because we'll pull ours too.
We could have a whole podcast and talk about just this topic, but it really changes the entire way that war is dealt with, and war has never been the same since then.
Oh yeah.
And I think a lot of it is because of that, because of the threat of nuclear weapons.
For reals.
Continue,
so yeah, this was basically his alternative solution. He wanted to set up defenses in space to protect us against like a ballistic missile attack.
Okay, yeah. And I think I remember this. Like, was it lasers?
Yes, exactly.
We're going to shoot down? Okay.
So basically, the SDIO, which is the Strategic Defense Initiative Organization, just researched a wide array of advanced weapons, which included lasers and particle beams, which is super awesome, and various different sensors to actually like detect these attacks.
Okay.
But they found that these technologies were decades away from being viable because they were talking about particle beams. We're still not there.
Do you think the government could have something like this now and just not tell people about it?
I mean, maybe. By all means, I totally believe that could happen.
I feel like when you think of mutually assured destruction, you're not going to put all your cards out on the table.
No.
You're going to let them think that that's all you can do.
And who knows, the Russians might have particle beams too.
Oh my gosh. Because now that sounds like technology that, well, I mean, it could be.
This was decades ago.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, this was decades ago. So yeah, as soon as like they found out that this stuff was super not viable, the SDIO's budget was abruptly cut, and they officially ended in 1933 and replaced with Clinton's BMDO, which was the Ballistic Missile Defense Organization. And then George Bush replaced it with something. I think Obama renamed it, or somebody renamed that thing. Like, stuff like this happens all the time, but everybody's done it in like a sensible manner. This one was a little bit far-fetched because Reagan was trying to use particle beams and lasers, which like adds that little bit of craziness to it. And that's how you get the Star Wars comparison.
I think like, okay, so I'm sure people were laughing back then. I can't imagine someone hearing that and being like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's a good idea. Oh, yeah,
but if I found out today we were trying to build lasers, I'd be like, dope! I can't wait to see what these lasers look like."
I was gonna say, if Trump had announced Star Wars instead of Space Force, what do you think? Do you think
I think he would have had more backing?
I think
people would have been like, "Yeah, we do need to protect ourselves from ballistic missile strikes." That sounds good to me.
I don't know anyone, and I'm basing a lot of this response off like friends that I have that I've talked to about it, or like friends that I've seen on social media joking about it. So that's I haven't gone and like polled people, just so everyone's clear. But
should we pause and go pull people around the apartment complex?
It seems
we'll
ridiculous.
Pull people at the pool. It'll be a pool poll.
A pool poll. Yeah, there's a pool outside full of people to poll. The pool people poll. Well, anyways, I just don't. I don't know anyone who heard the Space Force plan and was like, "Oh, whoa, that's what we need to do next. That's a smart decision."
Diehard Trump supporters,
right? Even then, they're like silent on that because it's like, I don't want to sound ridiculous. I just don't know if well, what it really is like, if he had launched Space Wars, it's more feasible. Or Space Wars. Now I'm getting them mixed up. Star Wars. That's more feasible now. It's like in the realm of believability. Well, I don't know. What do you think?
Versus having like Marines on a permanent like moon base or something.
Exactly, because
they wouldn't be Marines. They would be like space. What did you even call them?
Space Marines, dude.
Space Marines?
Here's the sad part too. All this sci-fi is already.
Well, they would be separate. You know what I mean? They would have to come up with another name because his whole thing is he wants it to be separate but equal, like just a sixth branch of the military.
That's right.
Totally independent, but just as strong as the other 5.
We're gonna need to name these troopers who are storming, who are taking space by storm.
You know?
What are we gonna call these troopers?
I don't know, man. I don't know. But what they should do is build like a moon-shaped base that has a giant laser in it that could destroy like whole worlds.
Whoa, that's no moon. That would be amazing. They should just combine the two ideas. The Space Force should be using Star Wars style lasers to shoot down missiles.
I mean, while we're at it, let's just make them look like stormtroopers straight up. Or we can go an opposite direction and go like say the arachnids like come down to Earth and we have to start fighting all these giant bugs. Then we're gonna have to go with more of like a Starship Troopers feel. But then you get into like the gray drab and we start to look a little bit like Nazis. It could get dangerous.
Yeah, what we need to do is determine, like, don't make any major decisions about aesthetic appeal until we find out what the Space Force's main mission is. And then whatever the main issue is, that's how we decide.
That's a good idea.
Then we just base it in that sci-fi universe it's closest.
We don't want to throw billions and billions into these uniforms if we're not going to look right.
It's like, do we want to go like 60s Star Trek with it? You know what I mean? Do we want to be like moon Nazis from Wolfenstein? There's so many choices.
There's a lot of choices.
It'll probably be moon Nazis. Let's be honest. Okay.
You said you had a question.
Well, here it's.
I bet you have tons of questions.
I have so many questions.
We all do.
What
is going on right now?
In Trump's brain, what does the Space Force look like? What do you think? In his brain, what does he see?
Who knows, man? I bet they have a McDonald's at their base.
That's amazing.
But I assume he imagines like we would build. Similar to the Chinese plan, we'd have some sort of like outpost that's constantly like orbiting. I think he also said something about a permanent base on the moon. I feel like that's something I read about, but I didn't jot it down in my notes. But the whole thing about like, he just wants to make sure that America is in charge of space.
Yeah.
And that's the wrong attitude to have because space doesn't belong to America.
Yeah, it's like the ocean.
It doesn't belong to the Earth. Like, you know what I mean?
That's
like,
true. It doesn't even belong to the Earth.
Like, we are such a tiny part of what is going on out there. Like, insignificant.
Yeah.
We are just a speck in the universe.
I think that idea might be too big for the average Trump supporter, though. Like
and Trump himself.
Okay, so what's the supporter response to this? Are they in favor of the
If I wanted to
Space
play like
Force?
devil's advocate?
Yeah.
Star Wars is super cool, man.
I guess that's true.
Trump needs to start building the empire now.
But there's just no technology that's even close. Like, we can't even shoot a rocket, land a rocket, and then shoot that same rocket again. You know what I mean? Like, we don't even have... How are you going to shoot a pistol in space?
Well, there are like private companies working on like trying to make rockets that you can reuse.
Like SpaceX
and
or
in the
something,
announcement, right? Donald Trump was like inviting them to work at the government facilities. He made sure to tell them they're going to charge them a rent, and that rent is going to be very high. He made sure to let them know that rent would be high. But he wants that private sector to come in with the government so that they can develop all that technology together.
But if the rent's going to be high, why would the private sector... Like, let's take Elon Musk, for example.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be creating a space military force, you need that guy on your side because he's like a James Bond villain. What is going to convince him to go work for Donald Trump as opposed to him just making
see it happening.
Like billions of dollars on his own right now? I don't know. I just don't think... I think, like Reagan, the biggest problem with his ideas is totally unfeasible right now.
Yeah.
But I also don't think anyone would be disappointed if it falls apart because for the most part, and you can just call me like whining about Trump or whatever, but how many of his promises have actually been followed through exactly how it was promised? Like the wall thing, like, sure, maybe now he's going to build the wall, but Mexico's definitely not paying for it.
No.
Like... I'm trying to think of some of these other things. Defeating ISIS in 100 days, obviously that one's just like false.
It was 100 biblical days, David.
It's up for interpretation.
Yeah.
What is a dated god? Anyways, I just the story baffles me. It's just hilarious. What I think, though, honestly, I think a little bit of it is deflection, and it's deflection from my story.
Oh, for sure. And there were many articles mentioning that. Like this whole thing is a distraction, and that's something that our government does all the time.
All the time.
When there's the big story they don't want you looking at. Like when the right hand's trying to show you something, you need to see what the left hand's up to. Because the left hand's about to come around and give you a uppercut real quick.
Yeah, right in there. Oof. It's true, though. And that's totally what it's going to be. We're not going to see anything from Space Force. We might see... I don't
we
even
are
think
getting a reboot of Space Ghost, which is awesome.
Interesting. Coast to Coast?
Yes, sir.
Ooh, interesting. Adult Swim?
Yes.
Ooh, not a sponsor. Okay, well, I'll check that out.
Hit us up. Not even for sponsorship. I just feel like you got some weird guys working there. I'd like to hang out.
I'd be interested in hanging out with Adult Swim, but to be honest, the shows, you've just lost me. The humor's too weird. Except Rick and Morty. Rick and Morty's like... But that's on a whole nother level.
And you've only won my support even more.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Frank's a much bigger fan. The one other thing that I want to bring into here, and this is a historical comparison, the idea that Donald Trump wants to have this like space dominance, it goes against a precedent set already by the countries of this planet in that no one owns the moon.
Yeah, we've all agreed.
Agreed. I pulled it up on the computer
area.
too while you were talking earlier. 102 countries have entered this accord since 1967. China later joined in 1983. So if Trump wants space dominance, you can expect that he's going to, and you said it, he wants to set up a moon base. So then how much of the moon is going to belong to the United States? Because he's not going to be like, or what is he's going to pull out of that deal so quick. Insert joke there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
About how fast he's gonna pull out of that deal. But it's just like, I don't know, man. It makes me nervous because, and this goes back to what I was saying earlier. He knows how to play the game like a bully. Like he knows how to be the oppressive one. But all these other countries, they're used to us having like a dignified president. When's the last time we had a president like this? I honestly don't know. Maybe never. Like one who is so brash and like no one has ever been this.
We need to do like a separate episode where we each trying to find the candidate for that position.
Like the closest Trump,
the closest to Trump.
The pre-Trump.
There had to be one. We just don't talk about him anymore.
Yeah.
Like
yeah, right.
50, 60 years from now, they'll try not to talk about Trump anymore either.
Yeah. Well,
instead of Trump, you remember like being in your elementary school and you have like the poster that would align the margins of the ceilings of all the presidents,
and you're like Garfield.
For Donald Trump, it's just going to be a picture of Garfield the cat.
That would be amazing. Poor Garfield though, President Garfield. That's like his only thing. That's making me remember who that guy is.
Didn't he die in a tub? Wasn't he the one that died in a tub?
I don't know.
Or who had to get the big old tub in the house?
I blame the American education system, but some of that information's just gone from my brain now. Like, I feel like I really want to get back into the history of the presidents.
Standardized testing, man. No child left behind. We're a product of that.
We are. Well, you can't change where you're from.
So many children were left behind.
Yeah. Actually, that is a really ironic part. Or just like pushed forward unknowingly. Well, unless you got another tidbit you want to toss in on here, I was going to switch on
that's pretty much it for the Space Force. What you got, David?
Well, man, I'm talking about what Donald Trump was probably, at least in my opinion, trying to shove away from. And that's what's going on with the Trump administration and the separation of immigrant families who are being detained. Now, man, this story's got so many different spots in history. It's really like 20, 30 years in the making.
There's a lot of like separate parts you could draw a comparison from for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm going to start just with what's going on right now. The Trump administration has separated 1,995 children from 1,940 adults from April 19th to May 31st of this year, 2018. So we have about 2,000 kids who are being displaced from their families, which is just sad. Which is just sad news. It definitely gets worse, I think. Now, this is basically them saying that they're taking into effect a zero tolerance policy, based on laws that have been in the past. Now, this is where everything gets really fuzzy, because the story is different from like almost everyone. So you have all these supporters saying that, Trump supporters or supporters of like a right-wing point are saying that the Democrats have been doing this under Obama. And then you also have people who are saying, no, this law has been there since Clinton. Trump said in an interview that it's the Democrats' fault. The Democrats passed this rules. And then, so.
I mean, in Trump's announcement on Monday, he was shouting those lines.
Oh, really?
At the very top of the announcement, he first opens with America's doing really good. We got everybody jobs. Everybody's got jobs. We're doing so good. And he's like, but real quick, let's talk about immigration. And several times he did not fail to mention that it is the Democrats' fault.
Yeah. Now, let's just get on board and be 100% unbiased. There has been some attempts at legislation that the Democrats have not participated in.
Oh, for sure.
Although I don't want to give my full, because I haven't read that legislation. And I think something that a lot of people misunderstand is when you see that stuff online or something, it's going to say like, oh, well, this piece of legislation is to keep immigrant families from being separated. But you don't know what else is written inside that. And usually there's multiple things.
Tons of caveats.
And a lot of times when there's a very divisive issue like this, they're going to sneak in something else that they've been trying to get. So then people get into this debate and they don't. And then also, both sides play this thing where they want to be like the righteous one. They don't want to be seen as like the evil group. Because that's basically what politics in the United States are right now. It's like, can we make this guy look evil or can we make the other side look evil? But we'll decide. We'll decide which one's more evil today.
Like somebody's got to be public enemy number one.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what's going on here. So, all right. So let's just compare this first to the Obama administration, which I think was the one that's the closest. And basically people said that Obama deported a bunch of people. Now, is Obama the deporter-in-chief? If you look at it on paper, Obama has the highest percentage of deportations of any president in the U.S. history. Now, there is something different about the Obama administration, which is something I learned today, is that when in that administration measuring the amount of deportations, they actually changed what the rule was for what a deportation classified as. So in the past, a deportation would be they found someone, they deported him from the country. In the Obama administration, they wrote off people who were caught crossing the border immediately, stopped, and then immediately bused back to Mexico. They counted those as deportations as well.
Okay.
Whereas
people
in the past,
who they just turned around at the gate, essentially.
Now, on paper, Obama deported about 2.5 million illegal immigrants. And to put it in comparison, George W. Bush deported about 2 million illegal immigrants in his presidency. Both were presidents for 8 years. Now, the argument could be made that
How
Obama...
many pretzels did Obama choke on?
Well, I don't think any. At least not on camera. Obama, though, maybe he wouldn't be the deporter-in-chief, is what a lot of people have come to call him. He might not have been had that number not been conflated, and we really can't tell what the real thing is. So chances are he wouldn't have been record-breaking.
And I had read something somewhere just a while ago. Sorry for interrupting.
No, you're good.
Just
you're
that
good.
Obama, like his administration put a lot of emphasis on deporting the right people. Like they were really trying to deport. Like Donald Trump yells about MS-13 all the time, but like that's really what they were looking for. Like they were really trying to get people with criminal records out of the country.
Yeah. And I just want to bring this up because, man, the thing is driving me nuts. And I try not to take it too seriously because it's just people trolling online. But when people see this thing with Donald Trump getting accused of this really just awful behavior, their defense is, well, Obama did it. And where were you guys crying about it then? And it's like, wait, what? First off, if you're really that upset that Obama did something wrong and there was no outrage, then you should be the first one to call out your candidate or the person that you voted for. Be like, hey, we don't do that. You know what I mean? But instead, it's like literally 2 wrongs don't make a right, everybody. How hard is that to understand? I don't get it. It's pettiness is what it is. So that's just really sad. But anyways, here's the thing about President Obama also. He's not a perfect dude. He bombed a ton of countries. He killed a bunch of civilians indiscriminately. There's no perfect person there, and to place all the ideology on one person and be like, okay, well, if Obama didn't do this, then the Democrats think it's okay. It's like, what?
And I even heard Obama did marijuanas when he was younger.
That guy shouldn't be president. No, I'm sorry. I heard he was born in Africa from Donald Trump. How ridiculous. Anyways, Obama, about the deporter in chief, though. So then the accusation was, well, Obama was already separating people because that was the law at the time. But then there's actually an interview from ABC News. They went and found Jed Johnson. I'm sorry, there might have been a typo on CNN.
And just call him JJ.
JJ. He served as Homeland Security Secretary under Obama. He said he did not separate children and parents despite the enormous surges of unaccompanied minors and families that came across the border in 2014, fleeing Central American violence. In 3 years on my watch, we probably deported, and this is a quote from him, we probably deported or returned or repatriated about 1 million people to enforce border security. One of the things I could not do is separate a child from his or her mother, or literally pull a mother from his or her arms, Johnson said on MSNBC last week. I just couldn't do it. So, and he goes on to say, okay, maybe there were a few times where the child got separated from the parent, but then they were reunited later. And we're talking about this guy oversaw over 1 million deportations in his time working for Obama.
Which is a lot.
That's crazy. That's like an insane amount of people.
A high number.
And this kind of thing didn't happen. So
1 million lives. Several million lives.
So then now we got to get into this thing where it's like, okay, if you think that Obama really did it, then you're saying that, okay, so then this guy's just lying outright. You know what I mean? And there's so many people that would have saw that who can give firsthand account. So really, there's no grounding in that accusation, which also to me is just insane because people could just figure it out if they just looked it up. If they just did a quick fact check, they'd be like, oh, well, Obama didn't do that actually. But no one cares about that.
The ironic thing about the information age is like, it really should be the disinformation age because all the knowledge in the world is right there at our fingertips.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we just don't give it a quick Google, man.
We don't even get a Google.
Get on Snopes real quick.
Right. Oh, but no, Snopes is compromised. It's a leftist website. That's the excuse. It's like whenever there's something you don't agree with, it's that's
the other side.
That's the other side.
That's the other team.
No,
trying
they're
to
lying.
Pull their tricks.
They're lying about everything they post on their website. It's like, what? And most of the times on Snopes, if you don't agree with that, check their sources. Like, there's so many of these websites where you can follow through and go to that next layer and figure out where they're getting their sources from. So let's go back a little bit further in history. Sorry, mine's a little bit different than Frank's. So then people were saying, hey, this law was in 1997 when Bill Clinton was a president. They passed this law, and now we're just upholding the law. That's all we're doing, everybody. So is this true? Not really. Not really at all. There was a 1997 settlement that unaccompanied children captured at the border would be held for 20 days before releasing them to foster families, shelters, or pending the resolution of immigration cases. So there was a law in place in 1977. It was a legal settlement. That part is true. But it's not in any way saying that children need to be separated from their parents when they're caught in the country illegally. It says that someone who is already an unaccompanied minor is going to be held separate. And if nothing is claimed, then we're going to send them to a foster family, or we're going to send them somewhere where they can be taken care of. But this is something totally separate. And again, like, this is not something that can be argued. You can look it up and read it yourself. Like, you can read the statute and figure it out. And it's something that people are saying, but it's not true at all. So where is this really coming from? Well, the person who's actually said it is Jeff Sessions. He said it back in April. And if you don't believe me, that's fine. Just look it up. Look up Jeff Sessions, April, illegal immigration. You will see him say, we will have to separate people from their families. We don't want to do it, but we want to discourage people from coming into the country. So they're using it as a scare tactic.
Yeah, it's a punitive measure.
And here's the other thing, too. This goes back to Trump's attitude. Maybe this will be more effective, and maybe there will be less people trying to come to the country if they know there's a chance that they're going to be separated from their kid. So will it work? Maybe. He might get the result he's desiring. But what is the cost as to the appearance? Because you have like people saying, other countries saying that we're like committing acts against like human rights. Yeah, acts against humanity.
Like there are children disappearing.
Yeah,
like, that we cannot account for. Like they are just gone.
And that part of the story is already
that these kids have gone into like slavery and sex slavery.
That's already part of the story that's been washed out a little bit.
Yeah,
and it's like I don't know. I just don't understand it. And how could they expect when they're separating these people and like sending them to different places in Mexico? How are they going to find their parents again?
They don't have a program. There's like a bunch of like organizations popping up to try to solve that problem because there's no system in place. They're just tossing them back in.
There's not one either. Now there's also one more thing about a trafficking act in 2008 that they says the same thing that was signed by Bush, but no, again, there's no law there. So there is no basis for this. Now, before I get into like my direct historic comparison, because I actually ended up finding one in a weird way, I just kind of want to sum up what's going on here. So the right-wing talking point right now is that they're just following the rules, but really the rules they're following is what Jeff Sessions said like 2 months ago, and just saying that, hey, we're gonna institute a zero tolerance policy. We're gonna like separate these families if we need to. You can look it up if you want. There's like a video of him talking about it. It's a press conference. It's like part of a news channel. This thing has not gone over well. Here in our town of El Paso, we have one of these camps that's set up in Tornillo this past weekend, and there was a protest. And they had Joe Kennedy III. He like flew out here with Beto O'Rourke, and those guys are on it saying like, hey, this is a travesty. Now, Beto O'Rourke, he's running for senator in Texas, which if you don't know is like, I think most people would know, Texas is a red state for the most part. This guy's really been coming up. He's got a ton of money. He's got a big following. He's literally driven to every county in Texas. He's visited like every city in Texas and spoken to people. Like, it's kind of crazy. People don't do that.
Oh yeah.
He live streams himself driving from city to city. It's so weird. It's a bizarre thing to see. Ted Cruz, I think, is feeling the heat a little bit. And I don't know if you heard this, but Ted Cruz put out a bill like 2 days ago saying, hey, we cannot separate families. This is wrong. And he was trying to get
some of that sympathy.
Trump's endorsement. That's what he's trying to do. But at least from the reaction I've seen online, it's kind of backfiring because there's a lot of right-wing people who are like, what? Like, why are you doing this? Like, I will not vote for you if you change on this
He's losing the people that already support him.
Now, I think Republicans are a little more diehard than Democrats in the sense that, like, a Democrat might vote third party if they feel betrayed, Hillary Clinton, whereas, like, a Republican is going to vote Republican. So I don't know if he's really going to lose people. We'll see. I think people are upset. And then he also had this thing with Jimmy Kimmel. I don't know if you heard about this, where he's playing this basketball game.
Oh, yeah.
Ted Cruz is really working for publicity right now. I think he needs, like, a good name. And I think that's interesting how he kind of tied this up. Right before we started, Trump signed an executive order saying that he's going to keep families together. And basically, he kind of took the credit. Like while he was signing it in this video, he's saying, "Oh well, you know what? The Democrats they haven't been able to solve this thing. We're finally putting an end to it." And then you have a reporter in the audience who's like, "Mr. Trump, why did it take you so long? Why did it take you so long to get this thing?" And he's like, "Well, you know what? No one's ever done it. No one's ever done it before. This has been on the book for 60 years. No one's ever done it. This is what Trump just said, literally like 5 hours ago." He dropped 60 years. And my brain, because I just finished doing all this research, I was like, "Wait, what?" We were talking about Bill Clinton, like in the 90s. So then I looked up, okay, what's 60 years from 2018? We have 1958. Okay, if you don't know your history, 1958, Eisenhower was the president. So what was the immigration law in the books? And here's my history comparison. Bam, get ready for this, everybody.
Hit us with it, David.
I looked this thing up because I wanted to see what's going on with Eisenhower. And let's have a comparison. You know what I mean? Like, Eisenhower's regarded as a good president. Now, he also was right at the end of World War II. He was in the military serving at that time. Really a totally different kind of person. He was tough on illegal immigration. Eisenhower, in 1958, oversaw a program, and it's just amazing that this is actually what it's called. He oversaw an illegal immigration program called Operation Wetback.
Oh, my goodness.
We'll just let that out there for a little bit. 1958, everyone. Definitely not political correctness, right? So, Operation Wetback. What's going on here? At the beginning of World War II, there was a severe shortage of workers on the home front. The government instituted a Braquero program, which I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Close enough.
This brought Mexican workers in the United States to fill up jobs that otherwise couldn't be filled. Which, first off, I have to touch on the poetic irony. It's like, how many times are Hispanics going to come in and do the job? You know what I mean? That's like what Mexicans are known for.
Every time that we're not using the Chinese or Irish.
Yeah, exactly right. By the 50s, we were now the number one pick.
We did it.
We did it, everyone. So these braqueros were in the country legally. The government often looked the other way, though, when companies were bringing in illegal workers that were Mexican workers. Because at this time, it was just what you did. So you had legal immigration, a lot of job opportunities.
Are you talking about at this time in the 50s or at this time now?
In 1950. Well, both, really. So people brought it in, people looked the other way about it because it wasn't a big deal. There wasn't kind of this demonization of an entire group of people like
it's just
there is
how you
now.
do business.
Exactly. It's how you do business.
They're just people trying to work and send money to their families.
Well, then that's really what it is, and people don't realize that. People are like, oh, well, these people are here to be criminals. It's like, no, they're here because they want a job so that their kids can do okay. And
they're here because Mexico's real hard.
And it's like a dad is leaving his entire family to go work so he can send what money he makes back because otherwise his family's going to starve.
And it's not all cool like a jazz musician like back in the 20s going out to the big city.
He's like washing dishes in some restaurant. He's doing some like really tough job that people don't want to do.
And living off of like nothing because the whole point is he's trying to send the money back.
And if you don't think this happens, like we live in El Paso. We live in the biggest border between two countries in the world. We have the most active border in the world. Like I've met so many of these people who either their parents live in Mexico and they send them over here for school or I've worked with these people. When I first started working, I'd work at a bunch of different restaurants and you'd meet these guys who haven't seen their family in years because they're here working and their family has to stay back there. It's really unfortunate, but
we lost a dude and he had gone through the right channels, but we lost a dude at work last year because he couldn't get his work visa reinstated.
Yeah. It's sad. And then, Mexico's one thing. I don't know if you know this, but they've had 300 political candidates and like political activists murdered this year. Since the beginning of the year. And they have like drug cartel members coming up and shooting people in the face like while they're taking photos with their supporters because they want to make sure that the people who stay in office are on their side and they're not going to leave any room for error.
It's a whole nother world over there.
It's a whole nother world. And that's the
third one. That's
Mexico.
Yeah.
You talk about some of these other like Latin American countries where we're also getting people who are here to seek asylum.
Worse.
It's insane. It's totally insane.
South America's crazy.
Yeah, people are just thinking, oh, they're just coming here to they want to take advantage of our welfare system. No, dude, they want to live. They just want an opportunity to live, which is ridiculous. Anyway, so we have this program. We have Mexicans who are crossing the border illegally on their own. And what ended up happening is this kind of, people were getting a little bit upset. So they started to do this program called Operation Wetback, which is its intention was to get illegal immigrants out of the country. Although some U.S. citizens were also kind of caught up into it, like people who were here on the right time. Now, this next part...
when you're fishing for tuna, sometimes you're going to get a dolphin or two.
Exactly. You catch them in the net. This next part's from timeline.com. They had a great article about this part of history, and I thought this was really interesting. Operation Wetback was a brainchild of two immigration hardliners with personal histories that matched the immigration system's escalating violence. At its peak, they were taking like 2,000 people out of a city in one day, and they were shutting down diners and like libraries to hold people while they were like getting them deported. Harlan Carter was the head of Border Patrol and one of the two guys who really was like on top of Operation Wetback. And I just want to reiterate, Eisenhower wasn't like in here like doing this himself. He was overseeing this program, but he was in charge of like kind of solving this problem that was coming up. Harlan Carter was raised in a backdrop of violent racism brewing on the Texas-Mexico border. And he was known for his brutal tactics and willingness to escalate conflict. They cite a time in his youth when, to settle an argument, he killed a Hispanic teenager. Like, he just killed another, like, as a teenager, just killed a teenager. And that was just this kind of attitude that he had, like just such greater than.
That's pretty insane.
That's terrifying stuff, right? He was a proponent of vigilante justice, obviously. Carter aligned with a radical group within the National Rifle Association.
They have radical groups within the NRA?
Well, this is the 50s. This is a different time. You know what I mean? This radical group in the National Rifle Association was hell-bent on reinterpreting the Second Amendment. After staging a coup and overthrowing the NRA Old Guard, Carter took the helm of the organization. He is widely credited with turning it into the political lobbying behemoth that it is today.
Wow.
So this guy is at the core of what we've already talked about in another, because we don't talk about heavy stuff all the time, but we talked about the NRA.
That first one kind of scared us out of it a little bit.
I know, right?
It's a weird experience.
It's a weird experience. Well, it's just, you talk about something serious and it's just heavy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so we talked about the NRA being a lobbyist machine, and that's why we can't get sensible gun legislation no matter what happens in the country. This guy started it, and he started it with this program. They have a mix of numbers. In the history books, a lot of times you see 1 million people were deported at this time during Eisenhower's presidency. Although they say the paperwork's not really there, and really they can only account from bottom end 250,000 maybe up. So somewhere in there is the range. So first off, those are low numbers compared to today. But if you think about it percentage-wise of population growth in the U.S., it's still a pretty impressive amount of people. Here's the thing that was messed up, and here is where it actually kind of ties into what President Trump was saying. Although I want to clarify, I don't think President Trump had any idea what he was talking about when he said 1960. Because in nowhere in this thing is it it wasn't like Eisenhower wrote a law back in 1958, hey, we got to separate the immigrants from their families. What they were doing, though, in Operation Wetback, is they were shipping people on buses to different locations. So they would get you from some random place, and instead of sending you right across the border because they thought people would try and cross the border again, instead, they shipped them out on a bus to central Mexico. So say you lived in Juarez, right on the border, all of a sudden you're hundreds of miles away in another place, your family's not there. So in a way, they were separating them, but they were putting them back in Mexico. But some of these people were just lost, completely lost about where they were. In effect, people have credited Operation Wetback as a success because illegal immigration was down at the time. So maybe it scared them, kind of similar to what I think Trump's doing now. I think this whole thing he intended to be really hard on it and then to back off and try and seem like bigger than kind of thing. But really his intention was to make a statement and see if everyone else picks up on it. And we'll have to see what the numbers look like after this. But you also have to factor in that maybe people don't want to come to the United States anymore. Maybe it's not a great time to do it. Anyways, so for Operation Wetback, there's one other thing you got to consider, though, is that at the time there was easily accessible jobs in the United States for immigrants who wanted to come here for the opportunity to get a job. If you wanted to work in the U.S., that wasn't an issue because Dwight D. Eisenhower set up the worker visa program in an efficient way that people who wanted to be here legally could. And again, we could get into a whole nother argument about okay, well, do we have open borders? How many people do we let in? Do we have some kind of educational limit? Do we have some kind of financial limit? How long is the waiting list? How many people There's so many facets, and immigration is not easy, but what you don't do is you don't take people away from their families because we're not monsters.
No.
And the last thing, and this is kind of the sad part, maybe I should have brought this up before the Operation Wetback thing because I thought that was hilarious. Not just because of the name, but just because Donald Trump just threw a random dart in a totally blacked out room and he landed on the board somewhere. There is official reports that Donald Trump has been separating, or not, I shouldn't say Donald Trump, it's not him personally. They have what they're calling kinder centers, where it's for people 13 and under, where they're separating small children from their parents. Ooh. And they didn't allow the press inside, but they let a local politician inside. He went in and talked to the press, and I saw this on CNN. You can see the video and kind of see his testimony for yourself, if you don't believe it, or you need to just see it yourself, which I think there's a lot of power behind it. But he says he walked into a room and it was for toddlers. It was clear that they're housing children from as little as one and above, that they're having to keep these children here.
That is insane.
It's just totally insane. So, people are up in arms. It didn't take long. People got furious about it, and Trump said it's done, but we'll see. We'll see if it's done or not.
Yeah.
So sorry, I felt like that was all over the place, just jumping in a time machine, jumping over here, jumping over there.
It was like a Bill and Ted's movie, but not as fun.
Yeah, definitely not as fun. Oh my gosh. Well, man, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that that kind of attitude totally shaped the NRA into what it is today. That makes a lot of sense. I mean, what do you think? Do you have an opinion on immigration? Is there something you want to share? Is it? I don't want to stew you in controversy.
I mean, immigration's a tough issue. You know what I mean? There needs to be some kind of system in place to like keep America safe and keep it secure. But at the same time, like there are people out there trying to get a better life for themselves for a varying amount of different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not just Mexico that we have people immigrating from.
Exactly.
But yeah, I don't know. Immigration's a tough one, man. Like the system's broken. It's way too hard for certain people to get into the country. But at the same time, you can't make it too lax. But at the same, like, while we were trying to keep Mexicans out from the Mexican border, like 9/11 happened. And like those people came in from the Canadian border. You know what I mean? They were able to take like flight classes here for commercial airliners.
Yeah.
Like it's a crazy thing.
When you talk about it from a national security point of view, that's difficult because you're going to let someone in.
Somebody's going to get through.
It's not going to be a perfect process. I think that you can't just have a completely open border. That's just not possible. For multiple reasons. I mean, and mostly you could just take it from like a public safety concern. You don't know who's going to be coming in. There has to be some kind of criminal background check, which makes sense. I can speak as far as the process. I can speak to as far as the people I've spoken to. And some have told me that they've been on the list for a long time, that it's a difficult thing, that maybe they're here on a student visa and they're not able to get another visa extension when they finish. And that's someone who's come to the United States, lived here, kind of like assimilated to the culture, wants to be here, wants to be a part of this, and then has to go back to their country, which is unfortunate. The thing that really gets me, though, is that people refuse to help those who are in need of help. So we have people who are coming here for asylum, which is in the law book. And I haven't seen it myself. I need to do a little more research on it. I'm hearing that there's videos of people who are being denied asylum, who are like they're being told there that they can't go through this line, that they're going to have to go here, and then they're getting separated from their family, which they should be allowed to go in first and get this thing. If someone is in threat of their life, then we need to help them out. But obviously, that's not a concern to at least the political's representation of the United States. You look at things like Syria, where we have all these refugees. People are worried about helping them. It's like, well, if there's anyone who needs help, it's the people who are like in a war-torn country. It's children who don't have any family anymore, and we're refusing to help these people. That's really sad. If you want to deport illegal immigrants, I think some are going to have to be deported. You know what I mean? It's just the truth. But don't separate them from their families. That's just
There's no reason
disgusting.
to be doing that. That's just an extra punitive measure.
Yeah.
And like they've said everything but that outright. Like we're doing it to punish the people coming in.
Exactly. I'm not happy with the way that America's perception is lately, and not because I think we should hide it better or something, but just because this isn't what the imagery of the country should be. Like, you look at the Statue of Liberty and you talk about like sending the poor, the needy.
You're downtrodden.
Yeah, and what are we doing? We're doing the opposite. We're just separating
We're shipping
families.
them back and shipping them to a place they're not
Yeah.
familiar with nobody they're also familiar with. Like people are coming into the country to try for an opportunity at a better life, and our punishment to that is completely ruining those lives.
Yeah. Like whatever they had coming from the country they were in, just like messing that up too. So, it's real upsetting, man. I wish I had brought that up before Operation Wetback. But with the children thing, dude, it's just unexcusable. It's monstrous. I'm glad that apparently it's going to be fixed. We'll see. We'll let y'all know. Although I'm sure you'll hear about it before we make a video about it.
Even like major criminal organizations, and not all of them, but some of them agree that like kids are off the table.
Yeah, right?
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Crazy.
It's ridiculous. I thought I could have done a historical comparison on maybe the Nazis and separating kids there. There's definitely times, in American history, the slave trade, we separated and destroyed so many families. But to me, those do have a slightly separate scenario, and I'm kind of wary about just comparing Donald Trump to Hitler. It's just such. I feel like we've become so just like laissez-faire about that. Just like, oh, we'll just throw that around. It's totally like, oh, whatever. My hands are off of it. I'm just calling him Hitler. I'm walking away. It's like, what? I don't know. I don't think we understand the gravity of that accusation. But anyways, let's move on to Peeps and Predicts. Hopefully we'll have Hitler and Trump on here. That'll be perfect.
Peeps and Predicts. If you're unfamiliar with Peeps and Predicts, this is how we like to end our podcast, a little post segment, if you will.
Yes.
We pull a random pair of peeps out of a jar. These are two characters from history, or I think we've had fictional characters. Definitely fictional characters, because a fictional character is our reigning champ right now, unfortunately. But yeah, here we go. If you have any suggestions for people, shoot them to us. We like our people in pairs, so send them that way, the same way the animals came onto Noah's Ark, allegedly.
Wow. Okay. Of all the illusions you could have brought up, I wasn't expecting that one.
I bet you weren't expecting that one, right?
No, I was not.
It was a good curveball.
Yeah.
Also, if you have any predicaments, it's just essentially just like a head-to-head challenge for these peeps to endure, send that our way as well. We did a podcast, davidandfrankandbeans at gmail.com. davidandfrankandbeans at gmail.com.
Just shoot or leave us a comment on this video.
Yeah, that's cool.
Follow us on Facebook if you want. I mean, really, we need to get more stuff happening with our social media game.
Do something nice for someone. That has nothing to do with us, but
do that.
Just do it.
Pay it forward. But Kevin Spacey ruined that movie anyway. It's bad, right?
You know, there's already a kid getting stabbed in that movie, and I didn't think it could get worse by other kids getting stabbed.
That movie's so sad. Spoiler alert, by the way. Jeez, what a jerk. If you haven't seen Pay It Forward by now, it's too late for you.
Too late. Anyways, here we go. I have our peeps, if you will. Our first set, anyways. Shigeru Magamoto. I know the second name. Hideo Kojima.
Shigeru
Miyamoto versus Hideo Kojima.
I think it's Hideo, but we'll go Hideo.
Rodeo?
No, that's the piece by Copeland, but the beef is what's for dinner. Anyways,
these peeps were given to us by Sam Polanco. Thank you,
one
Sam.
Person. Sam Polanco would have gotten that joke. Okay, so let me give you the nerd rundown real quick.
Give me the rundown, David.
And I'm looking this up so I can make sure I don't credit Miyamoto with a game that he didn't make. Miyamoto is the man. He created Mario Bros. He created Legend of Zelda. He created Donkey Kong. He's basically just like the creative genius behind Nintendo that made Nintendo what it is today. He's got this quirky thing about like when he makes a game, it's about something that he's been into. So I'm not sure what the story behind Mario and Donkey Kong are, but like Legend of Zelda,
and bananas.
I guess, right? Legend of Zelda, he got really into urban exploring, like, you know, hiking up mountains, checking out caves, which I imagine in Japan would be bomb. So essentially Legend of Zelda, that's what that game is about. And when you think about Zelda, it's like, okay, something groundbreaking, something that's never been done before, that's influenced thousands of video games. I don't know. Today he's still alive. He did Pikmin not that long ago, which he said was like inspiration from gardening. He got really into gardening. He saw these little creatures crawling around his garden, and he like imagined the scenario where these plants, you know what I mean? And he's just one of those creative guys, and he's like the video game equivalent of Stan Lee. Everybody loves him. He's just a happy old man who shows up, and everyone's like, Miyamoto-san. Hideo Kojima is like the leather jacket wearing bad boy of video games. He made Metal Gear Solid, which makes no sense at all. He's like super crazy. His gameplay is excellent. He got fired from Kojima, which was probably Konami, which is probably their biggest mistake ever. That's when they canceled PT, the Silent Hills thing. That was what Kojima was making with
highly unfortunate
with Del Toro and Norman Reedus, and now they've moved on to Death Stranding, which is that new super weird, also classic.
What is it even going to be about?
Who knows? You know what I mean? Like Kojima, you never even know what the story is, but that's not important because the gameplay is going to be boss. So that's for all you non-gamers. I hope that's okay. I hope I didn't skip anything too important. Abridged. Anyways, let's check out what they're going up against. Here, I'll throw one at you. You can have the other one. Oh, nice catch.
Nice throw.
Man, we're not on camera. I'm guessing this is like George Seachy or something, but it's the better adult film store clerk. Which I'm going to be honest, I've never like done that before. I think
You've never been a clerk at an adult film store?
well, that, but like I've never interacted that experience. I think that's something that's lost from generation. Like maybe your dad had to go to some adult film store, but people our age and younger, who's doing that? I don't know. Maybe someone is. Maybe I'm just like.
They're open. Somebody's
they're
going
open.
there.
That's true. Someone's going, but it's older people who haven't. Well, I don't know. Now I want to know. Let's get one.
We're gonna have to do a second poll after the pool poll. We're gonna have to go down to the porn shop.
I don't want to do that poll.
The pool poll is gonna be a lot more enjoyable, man.
Yeah, it is. It'll be a lot less weird. Well, maybe it'll be weirder for us asking a bunch of people in a swimming pool, as opposed to the weird vibes we'll get from people.
If they don't want to answer, we'll just push them in the pool.
I was just gonna say we need to get one of their like store clerks to get on down here, and we'll have like a interview. Our first, we did a podcast interview, which would be hopefully full of some kind of good story. But
With Greg from the porn shop.
which to kick this thing off, I'm assuming that you want to just get out of there. You don't want any weird vibes. That's what I'm assuming. I would think Shigeru Miyamoto, because he's just so nice. And this might be harder for you because I feel like I've seen a ton of videos of these guys throughout my life. He's just this happy little Asian man. He'd be like, oh, here you go. Whereas Kojima, I feel like it'd be a little bit weird just because he's weird. I don't know. You don't want to add any more weird in the situation.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same sentiment, but I'm going the opposite direction because of that sentiment. Because the last thing, if I'm trying to get in and out of this adult film store as fastly as possible with my sinful choices in my hand, take these purchases home. Okay. The last person I want checking me out at the end of this experience is a happy little old man.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So just kind of like yeah.
It'd be like getting to the end of this experience. This shameful experience you're trying to get through it as fast as possible. And your grandpa is like at the front.
That is weird.
You have Mr. Miyagi checking you out.
It would be better if your weird uncle was the one.
Exactly. Like you want Kojima. The weirdo there because that's exactly what you expect. The weirdo's not going to judge you because the weirdo, this is his world.
I can show you. That's when Kojima busts out in Aladdin.
He's like, I can show you the world. And you're like, oh, no, I'm good. I'm just running through really quick.
Yeah, just ring this up,
Just this one spot. That's all I'm concerned about.
You know what? I'm gonna flip. I'm gonna join you. That is a great argument, man. That is a solid argument. Why don't we read this next one?
The next, who would survive a slasher flick?
Ooh. Okay, so first off, I don't know. Like, I don't know either of these people's physical capabilities. They're both video game designers,
so probably not intense.
Probably not a lot.
Yeah, probably not super physically capable.
You know what? I feel like I should pull up some like pictures so you can see what's going on here, Frank. I do have my laptop here in front of me. Here is Kojima.
Okay.
He is 54, thin guy, but aren't all Japanese people thin? Pretty much. Much more so than Americans. There is...
see, I would not want that guy 65. At the checkout counter at an adult film store.
I was just saying because he's so nice. He'd have great customer service, but I can see what you're saying for sure. I think I overlooked a very key spot. Now, maybe he could use that sword and shield from Zelda. I don't know, man. I see Miyamoto being like the funny death towards the beginning of a slasher movie. Yeah. Depending on how serious your slasher is, there's always that one like weird character, like in Friday the 13th Part 3, maybe. There's a lady who's on the side of the road eating a banana. And she gets murdered like indiscriminately. I could see Miyamoto sitting on the side of the road eating a banana. Jason comes up, slashes him real good. I could see that.
But Miyamoto might pull through because he's got some puzzle game, man. Like that guy's got a very critical mind.
Oh, I can see what you're saying. Like he would be too smart, or what do you mean?
Yeah, I mean he could outsmart this killer somehow and get this way out of there. I just got to throw an argument in there somehow.
Yeah, we got to get an argument going. You know what? I think, and this is hard to say. Like, what takes more brains, Legend of Zelda or Metal Gear Solid? They're both like very active parts, but you know what? Metal Gear Solid is about being undetected, It's about sneaking through an environment quietly, using the things around you, learning your enemy pattern.
Which, as we've learned from Friday the 13th, the game is paramount.
Yeah, that's true.
To escaping a slasher.
So if we're going to compare it to another video game, which seems just right, if you were playing Friday the 13th and you had two counselor options, it was Miyamoto and Kojima. Kojima's stealth's going to be way higher. I bet he's going to have better athleticism. He'll be able to run. I bet they would both be equal in repair skill because they're both computer guys.
And luck, I think.
And luck.
They both had the same amount of success in life.
To me, it sounds like Kojima's got slightly higher skills than Miyamoto, or at least the ones that you want for the scenario that you're in. I think it's an easy decision, man. I think Kojima is winning right now.
Winning overall.
Winning overall, like he's the winner for today. That's two for two. But the big question, and this question at the end of every episode, what's up with Batman? What's going on here? What's this last? Is it in here? Is this it?
Do I have it already? No. Yeah. No, it's in there. What's it gonna be, David?
I'm excited. So, in case you have no idea what's going on right now, because we did not introduce this, we basically have a reigning champ on this segment. His name's Batman, and he's going to be. The reigning champ goes up against whoever is
the winner of the week.
The winner
of the episode, I guess. We don't do this weekly.
Yeah, we don't do it weekly. The winner of the episode. So we have Kojima against Batman now. And the paper just says Big Brother House, which I'm assuming means who would win a thing of Big Brother.
Okay. I think we might finally take down Batman today, and I have some arguments for you.
Okay, I'm definitely interested. I just...
Why don't you argue for the reigning champ really quick? Because you know I won't.
Oh, so I have to argue Batman. Well,
yeah.
that's
Why would
the
Batman
most fair.
win? If you have arguments for Kojima, I'll welcome them.
I have arguments against Kojima
Batman.
already, and I think what's happened is now we've become two attorneys, and I'm I am Batman's attorney, and you're every week you just get some random guy in to try and out argue Batman, but he's the perfect character. And
that's what this segment has turned into, at least the tail end of it.
Yeah, it's turned into Frank tries to debate Batman with David.
I will defeat him
one day, maybe. I don't know if today's the day though. Here's my thought behind it. Because I've never seen Big Brother. All I've seen is Dead Set, which is like the zombie version of Big Brother. I think I get the idea though. It's people in a house. They vote each other off, right?
I believe so.
They vote each other off, and then whoever wins gets some money or something. I don't know how they decide between the last two people. Maybe they bring all the other people who were voted out to vote. I don't know. That's what they did on Survivor. I wish this one was Survivor because the argument would be much easier. But for Big Brother, how do you win a competition like that, Frank? What do you need to do to win a competition like that?
I think you need people skills.
People skills?
And I think you need a willingness to win.
A willingness to win. Now, I want you to be honest with me right now. Who is going to have better people skills? Billionaire playboy Bruce Wayne? Or a computer programmer who got fired from a company that was he was known for creating, essentially, as a powerhouse. Konami could not get along with Kojima so much because Kojima was so particular that they had to fire him, and he's literally the only people making Konami money. Metal Gear Solid is all they have left. That and whenever they try and reboot Castlevania every 4 or 5 years, that's all they had left. They fired him, which has to be the worst business decision ever made. Batman, literally, he can turn his charm on at any second he wants. He's super resourceful. And if he's in there and this is part of some Batman plot, he's probably got the whole place already bugged. You know what I mean? A second layer of Big Brother bugs where he knows what's going on, and Alfred's watching it or Robin's watching it, and then Batgirl's there typing, and she's like, "Okay, Bruce, this is what you need to do. This person's allergic to mushrooms," and then Batman murders someone. Well, he wouldn't murder him because he's Batman, but.
So this is the problem with Batman, because I had the exact same argument, and every time I have an argument, Batman can do the same thing but just better. And it's so unfortunate because that was going to be my argument too. Batman has, Bruce Wayne, yes, charisma. Batman, not so much. Batman, his relationships fall to ashes in his hands.
That is a great argument. that his relationships usually don't pan out.
No, they don't.
But that's only in some tellings of the story. You know what I mean? Where there are other relationships that do, like
Where are these people then?
Alfred,
The one.
Robin when he's not dead,
Well, done.
Catwoman. They got a thing going on. Sure, it's not totally healthy, but they're cool.
That's
with
not
each
a
other.
healthy relationship.
Actually, they just got married. So if anything, it's as healthiest as relationships ever been.
There are plenty of unhealthy marriages, David.
But it's difficult. Another thing to argue about that thing with Batman, because there's so many iterations of Batman. So like you talk
True.
like Batman the animated series, like Batgirl's on his side the whole time. But you talk about like, I don't know, Dark Knight or something, totally different style Batman.
Totally different.
But then he has a rocky relationship with Rachel. But my argument for Christian Bale Batman, how many times does he need to charm someone in that movie and they're charmed? Like
Every time.
every time. It's never like, oh, he failed. It's just ridiculous. His charisma's through the roof. So I think this game calls for a certain set of skills, and Batman has those skills definitely way better than a computer programmer could. There's no way a computer programmer has better social skills and social charm than Batman. It's just not possible.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to give it to Batman. That's a solid argument.
Yeah.
It's just a weird dude.
Kojima?
Yeah.
Super weird guy. Maybe more resourceful than Miyamoto. That's what we learned today.
Somebody needs to suggest father-son three-legged race. And then I'll finally beat him.
But like with your luck, it'll be someone who's like only has one leg and their son's dead or something.
Yeah, right.
Which I don't know who
And
that
then
is.
Batman will be slightly better suited because he'll have both his legs.
Da-na-na-na-na-na. There's still a great argument that in a father-son three-legged race that Batman could just get Robin to pose as his son.
That wouldn't be legit.
Oh, Batman has a son too. He could be the father. See, that's a whole nother
Oh,
part of that
goodness.
argument that we haven't even looked at.
Damn you, Batman.
How exciting.
At the end of all these episodes, I feel like the old man janitor who got the mask pulled off of him by Scooby-Doo and the gang, and I'm just like,
Yeah, well,
damn you kids.
and Batman was in Scooby-Doo.
No, God.
Well, everybody, thank you for sticking into the Batman podcast, where we discuss everything Batman. We hope you tune in next time. Same bat place, same bat time. That's not true.
It'll be the same place. It'll probably be a different time.
It'll definitely be a different time. There's no way we're going to nail that down. Thanks for listening. Contact us. Send us a comment. Put a like. Share something. Subscribe. Hit bells. Do whatever. Do whatever
something.
you want. You know what I mean? Go register to vote. Do that. That's way more useful than any of that nonsense I just said.
Learn another language.
Yeah. There you go. Better yourself. Learn some Tai Chi or something.
Ooh,
Do yoga. Ooh, that's nice.
that'll be fun. Learn.
Anyways.
Cook something you've never cooked before.
Wow. Read a book. When's the last time you read a book?
Wow.
Sorry, not to be accusatory. Plenty of people read books. Well, everyone, thank you for listening.
Goodbye.